What's happening, y'all? This is Todd Wilson with Elevate Your Game. Today, we have our special guest, none other than Dinos Trigonis. Dinos, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much. I feel blessed to be here, considering the magnitude of the guests you've already had here, Jason Hart and Chris Johnson.
No, it's awesome to have you. One of the godfathers of grassroots basketball, nationally, almost internationally at this point. A lot of basketball knowledge. Your most well-known event is probably the Pangos camp, amongst the many other things that you do just around the country, developing, supporting, and letting people know where the talent is when it comes to basketball. So we appreciate everything you do for the basketball community.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Awesome. So the first thing we love to do on this show is look at our wall of movies, our hoop movies. And so what's your favorite hoop movie of all time?
You know, it's going to have to be a close call between Coach Carter, The Kind of Love, and More Than a Game, because obviously I had a chance to be a witness, no pun intended, to LeBron James in high school, and had a chance to kind of see him up close and personal for a long weekend here in LA at the Pangos Dream Classic. So probably I would give it to More Than a Game.
More Than a Game. Yeah, awesome. Coach Carter probably second close, I know.
Coach Carter is up there too. There's a lot of good movies on this wall too.
Yeah. No, I remember being at the Pangos Dream Classic then. It was the first Pangos event that I went to as a spectator. And what an amazing event. It was
also White Man Can't Jump, the sequel, and White Man Can't Jump's a former Pangos event alum, Cinco Walls, is starring in that this year.
That's right. Yes, yeah. I watched the first 20 minutes, and I started the movie too late and fell asleep, but I'm going to finish it. It looked pretty interesting. Have you seen it yet?
Not yet.
Yeah, check it out. It seems pretty interesting.
Trust me, I'll get to it. Trust, if you're watching out there, I'm going to get to it.
No, absolutely. More Than a Game is awesome. I think they're coming out with the movie version of the actual documentary pretty soon, and so it's awesome seeing just LeBron up to last night. His career over the last 20 years, you've probably seen him for the last 24 years, including his high school career.
Actually, the first saw him, I coached against him in AAU basketball when he was a freshman, going to be a sophomore in high school. That's the first time I got a taste of him. I was playing up in Oakland at that time. Oakland Soldiers had done we're doing an end of summer tournament called the Elite Eight at UC Berkeley, and took my Belmont Shore team up there with Dijon Thompson, who played at UCLA and in the NBA. Kirk Snyder played at Nevada, first round draft pick of the NBA. Cody Pearson, well known in the Valley, at Notre Dame, went to Long Beach State, one of the best defenders I've ever coached. And we were beating this second Soldier team, Oakland Soldier team, in the first half pretty well. And they had a younger group of guys, Leon Poe, Ayinde Ibaka, and there was one guy I didn't really notice at first. And my recollection, he didn't do much in the first half. We were up fairly big. And somehow the second half, they kind of let this guy loose. They kind of let him play a little more. And he completely destroyed us in the second half. He came back and beat us. And I was kind of puzzled because I knew kind of Ayinde, I knew Leon Poe. And then I heard his name for the first time. A name like that you remember.
Yeah.
And LeBron James. I said, LeBron, I never heard that name. He's not from California. He's from Ohio. Oh. So he was a ninth going to the 10th. And I realized he had just won a state title in Ohio as a freshman. I think Maverick Carter, who he's a business partners with now, was on that team as a senior. And that was the kind of first time I kind of saw him. He reminded me a lot of a Paul Pierce back then. But he was the second half. He was getting knocked down, hitting shots, and ones to the basket from range, from deep. Kind of had the whole package, and kind of knew we were looking at something special at that point.
No, that's the second time I heard of a LeBron story where he was kind of calm at first. It was John Lucas told me a story. They were playing with him NBA and NBA runs in Chicago when his dad was out there. And all of a sudden, it was a bunch of pros and LeBron, and they weren't passing LeBron the ball. And John Lucas Sr., or the second, I should say, said, hey, let him go. Give him the ball. And first play, he rises up and dunks on like 3 people. And then from then on out, he just takes over. And that's kind of been we saw it last night when it's a little pressure or something needs to be done, he tries to handle
Well, he
it.
was a big draw. I remember the tournament in Texas that he played in because his normal AAU team was the team that he grew up with that was coached by Drew Joyce, who ended up being first the high school assistant.
Mm-hmm.
And then when the head coach, Keith Danbrot, left for college again, he became the head coach. That's the guy I dealt with him when he came to UCLA in January of 2023. But he also played on the side with the Oakland Soldier connection. I think Ben Braun was then the coach at Cal. He had a connection with Danbrot. Danbrot was his assistant before that at Eastern Michigan. So I think he was trying to use that to kind of recruit him. I think Ben knew how good he was. Most of us didn't realize he was going to be at that point as a ninth grader that good.
Right.
All-time leading scorer in the NBA good.
Right.
Contender for number one of all time good. So he tried to use that to his advantage. I think putting him on that Soldier team with other guys that he was recruiting, he was trying to form a bond with those guys to try to position himself, which is a smart thing to do. But we were in Pearland, Texas for, I think John Urey had a tournament years ago. And you'd go to the game before and there'd be nobody in the gym. And when he played, it filled. And then when the game was over, back to empty. So every time it was kind of like a high tide thing where like 10 minutes before he was about to play, the gym filled. And then right after it emptied. So you could tell then the word had gotten out and people were noticing his greatness to be at that point. But he played kind of different than Jordan or Kobe. He had more of a Magic Johnson. As you see him now, he probably could have been a Magic Johnson type point guard because his floor vision, his passing ability,
his size.
He kind of enjoys passing as much as he does scoring, even though he's the all-time scorer, obviously. But you saw but he was more athletic on the defensive end than Magic as far as blocking shots, tracking guys down from behind for a block or rebounding and things of that nature. So you saw it then, and then obviously listening to him on video or audio, he had kind of a Muhammad Ali type quality in that he was even at that young age, he was very polished in front of the camera. He knew what to say, how to say it, how to give the interview what they wanted. Very professional. You could tell he had studied the game.
Yep.
Well, some guys just play. He was a student of the game and had kind of mastered that mental element of it as well.
That's awesome. So through your years, and I want to say even more recently, have you seen anyone like a LeBron that has that professionalism, that it factor to come in and compete for that all-time spot? Is there anybody that stands out to you?
That's a good question. I think that we've kind of had a lot of guys in that category, that are up and coming players, but not the kind of whole package. Kevin Durant is probably close. Steph Curry is kind of a unique type player and kind of a relatable player, especially because of his size. Most guys who play are kind of within that 6 foot to 6'4" range. He kind of changed the game because he made what normally is difficult look so easy. It actually could be more of a curse than a blessing because people think they can emulate that. And it's very, very, very difficult. And they don't understand when you talk about guys like Curry and guys like Steve Nash and guys like LeBron, all this fancy stuff, that's kind of extra. That's whipped cream. Those guys are much more fundamentally sound.
Everybody else.
Than people think. That they've mastered that first, then they added the style piece to it. And Curry obviously was not very good this last series, which is kind of surprising because if you look at the stats, if he shoots average, they probably win that series.
Yeah.
He had some really bad games, which is uncharacteristic for a guy that good of a shooter, maybe the best shooter of all time. And probably not to that degree. I think LeBron was more focused. LeBron had that kind of winning all-around game. A lot of guys do certain things well, but nobody really has the whole package on and off the court.
Yeah.
Or the mental aspect of it, like LeBron has had for 19 years. For a long time, I thought Father Time had no competitor. He's really hanging in there. I mean, he's giving Father Time a run for his money. But I got Anthony Edwards, so talented.
Yeah.
And he was was a breakout guy at my camp. One dunk went viral against Johnny Juzang. That kind of helped him kind of go from being a guy well known in Georgia to being known nationally. But you see with him, he still has a way to go maturity wise. Mm-hmm. And a lot of these guys are young. They're not unlike guys in the 80s and 90s who had a couple of years of college. They're not mature or experienced yet off the court. And that's part of the I think the learning curve. Some people learn it quicker. Some people have good mentors, some don't. I was at the Final Four. I saw Houston Rockets play at home against the Lakers. They have a lot of young kids, Jalen Green, guys I know very well, Josh Christopher, Deshaun Nix, Ty Washington, Eason, who's been to my camps, has been on my team. And the maturity they think is still not popping for them.
Yeah.
And now they had a change of coaches. It looks back to maybe an older guy, because you watch them warm up. I kind of joked with John Lucas, the older John Lucas, recently about it. In the pregame warm-up, they're going hard in all the conditioning. They're jumping around, pitter-patting like football drills. Mm-hmm. They're going hard, this and that. And then when the game starts, they barely run back on defense. It's almost like did you get war? The physical conditioning guy wear him out there in the warm-ups. You got nothing left, or what's the disconnect there? Mm. You look pretty in the warm-ups, doing all that effort. You had more effort in the warm-ups than you did in transition. That's a maturity thing, and that's why having all those young guys with no veterans sometimes is not a good idea, because you got to have somebody teaching them how to be professional, because everybody has somebody teaching them how to be a professional in the NBA. And that's the thing that I think teams like Houston are missing. And hopefully they're going into year 3 now. They got to show some progress.
Yeah, absolutely. I like that. I love doing the pre-draft every year. It's probably one of my favorite times, because we get to see these kids for 6 weeks. It's not a long time that we're working with them before they get drafted and are with their NBA teams. And it's not about it is understanding the NBA game, but it's also the conditioning of the NBA game, but more importantly, how to be a pro, how to show up to the gym every day. What are you eating every day? What are you doing with your time every day? And those are the things that make the separation, even when you become a pro, is creating that separation.
Well, the one thing I've been to a couple NBA pro days, and one thing it's kind of very mystifying to me is how much stock they put into that, which obviously most guys look great at pre-draft camp. And most guys, I've seen it from Phil Jackson to Pat Riley, who sit down, they're watching these guys do these drills. And you guys have these guys operating at their optimum self. Mm-hmm. And that's, I think, part of the equation. But I think the danger there is when you put too much of your perception into that and you don't study the guy's overall history.
Yep, the film.
That's why a guy like Austin Reeves gets undrafted. Fred VanVleet gets undrafted. Mm-hmm. Gabe Vincent, who has 29 in NBA Eastern Conference Finals, goes undrafted. You're not paying attention to the production. I love potential like everybody else. Mm-hmm. But to me, they have a saying in Korean, seeing is believing. I don't know how to pronounce it in Korean. But seeing is believing. Obviously, if you look at Fred VanVleet's history and you paid attention, you saw a guy that was tough, that won, that played for a good coach, a 4-year guy, and yet they ignored him, and then he proved them wrong. You saw Austin Reeves. I saw a guy that the way he played was like a Craig Elo, and they ignored him for whatever reason. So I think the part of the problem is some of these guys are so, I think, scared is the word, of missing on the home run swing. Yep. They're not willing to take the singles and doubles. and they're swinging only for the fences. I had a guy, I won't reveal the name, the playoffs, they had a very good NBA playoffs, and they were picking late in the first round. And they asked me about a kid that I knew very well. He said, "What do you think?" The scouting guy. I said, "Well, do you want to babysit, or do you need somebody to come in right away?" And they could afford to babysit because their roster was loaded, and that's part of the equation. But also, too, there's a danger there from the NBA standpoint. If they're just sending signals that all we care about is what you look like, if you look the part, then why would you expect these guys to really put that extra effort in to play the part? If they know whatever they do on the court means nothing because I look a certain way, or my arm span is a certain amount of inches, or whatever, what incentive do these guys have to really produce? And I'm watching the ESPN rankings that came out, okay?
Yeah.
Seeing guys that I saw that did nothing this spring, and yet they keep them high for what? You're not helping that kid. You're hurting them because you're telling them, I don't care what you do on the court. I'm still going to put you 1. Or I'm going to put you 3. I'm going to put you top 10. That's not good for the game. It's not good. I think it's hurting American basketball, to be quite honest.
Yep. No, it's I think it's huge you hear it all the time. Even when we're working with pros, it's like those rankings don't matter because some of it feels some people like, oh, they're going to rank me that low or not rank me. Hey, they're building that chip and then it's making those people at the top more comfortable. I heard from an agent recently, speaking to what you were talking about, how the NBA teams choose prospects that have been ranked high, or they're like, these guys rely on their jobs to pick the right guy. So if they don't go after who everybody else is going after, they can lose their job. This is their livelihood. So they have to go with the for sure person, even though they may not even produce in a year or two, or they don't check their whole background and their character and all those other things that matter. And so it seems like in both of those, with the media or these NBA team scouts, it's like they're doing it to keep a job more than they are actually evaluating the talent. What are things that you look for? You get to see the top players in the country pretty much year round. What do you look for in evaluating talent on the court and then off the court?
Well, I think that's a good question. And also you have to understand who your audience is. And that's also part of the problem, because a lot of these high school kids, most of them will not be NBA players. They won't be pros. So their audience is more of a college coach. Yeah. But what you're seeing now, I'm not sure whether some of these evaluators are trying to audition to be NBA scouts. They're evaluating kids for college as if they're evaluating from the draft. And there's two different scenarios here, because what makes a good college player and helps a coach win and keep his job is not necessarily the same with somebody picking for the NBA draft. And I think that's part of the problem. I think Kelvin Sampson, who's a tremendous coach, he went to a Final Four with Oklahoma with a kind of undersized guard named Hollis Price out of New Orleans, who was undersized but very effective, good enough to get Kelvin to the Final Four. If you would have told Kelvin Sampson, hey man, this guy will never make the NBA, you shouldn't recruit him. He's not that good enough.
Right.
You took him to a Final Four. And there's other guys that get drafted that don't even go to the tournament.
Markelle Fultz.
Exactly. So, but ultimately, you look at that draft and how, even though Danny Ainge is gone from Boston, that has to be one of the most all-time boss moves in NBA GM history. The guy gets the best player in that draft and trades down.
Yep.
And got another first round somewhere else.
Yeah.
He got the number one player at 3 or 4?
3.
3. And got a first round pick.
Yep.
That's, I don't know how that's got to be one of the best moves of all time. But even Tatum and AU at college was putting up numbers. Other guys you look at, when you judge too much upside and not enough on production, you get these high rates of being disappointed, of having guys who are bust or guys who are not playing up to their expectation. And a large part of it is their mental makeup, their work ethic. You see it every day because you work with them. You know guys who go hard all the time. You know guys that don't. You know guys that you have to drag to work out, and guys who beat you to the gym. Those are the guys that typically make it. And also, do they have that family support system in place to avoid all the distractions they're going to get once they get the hands on money they've never seen before?
Right.
That's part of the issue as well. So, and you look at a guy like Evan Mobley, who was I think at 3, and Cade Cunningham was a worthy one. Jalen Green is a good talent, but the safest pick of those 3 was Evan Mobley, because not only did you have the upside, and you had a guy that produced at USC, you looked at his character, his family support system.
Right.
That's not a guy you're going to have to worry about at 12 midnight getting a call.
He's been a pro since he was 12, probably.
And the way he approaches the game, the way his dad and his mom keep him on the straight and narrow and focused on what he needs to do. High character, high grades, highly intelligent. So is the brother, and that was the safest pick. And you could probably make the argument he has played as well as any of those 3 guys.
Yeah.
Although there's still a long time to go for Cade did some injuries. Jalen was kind of on a bad team that he was forced to carry. That doesn't have much help yet, although very talented. But those other intangible things made it more of a safe pick, in my opinion. And so far, I think I've been proven right.
Yes, I agree. With the you used the word production. Describe production this is for the kids who are saying, "Oh, I produce because I can hit a 3," or what does production look like on the court?
Well, it's not just numbers, but how you affect your team in a winning basketball way. I got these guys, they want to go to the EYBL and they want to go on that platform, and then they turn around and they want to be invited to my camp, and I tell them, "Hey, I like you. I think you're a good player, but you're putting up 5.8 points a game. How's that scream All-American? It doesn't.
Right.
If you want to be on that platform and you want to be considered the top, then you're going to be judged on that platform. And if you're in the bottom of the pile there, you're not an All-American. You're just one of other guys who are secondary guys in that thing."
Right.
And I'm looking at the EYBL stats, and a lot of these guys have very meager stats. Now, in fairness, they are playing with a longer 3-point line than they're used to. They are playing with a shorter shot clock than they're used to, and that's an adjustment in many cases. But at the end of the day, if your goal, your dream is to be that dude, then you're going to have to be that dude at every opportunity. When you match up against somebody that's more heralded than you, that's more respected than you, that's an opportunity for you to show that you're his equal. You can't blow those opportunities, because in that situation, if you hold serve, you win. If you're considered to be lesser than that person and you play him to a draw, the draw goes to the underdog, because he was supposed to knock you off. He was supposed to kill you. If you sit there after the game and you held your own and you're toe-to-toe, that's a win for you. So a lot of these guys, they don't understand it. They play. They don't understand who they're playing against. Now, they should play hard no matter who the opponent is. But when you have that matchup, that's an extra incentive. And Draymond Green, as you probably heard, he was picked in the 2nd round. Another great example of upside and not watching him win at Michigan State, being the leader and the toughness that he brought to the table as far as winning basketball. He knows exactly who was picked ahead of him. I think he was picked 37th. I forgot what it was. He knows by name all the guys picked ahead of him, by name and by pick. So when he saw those guys, he went after them. Same thing with Paul Pierce. Paul Pierce dropped to 10th in that draft he was in. I'm not sure what happened. There was sometimes these NBA drafts are a little bit fickle and they're funny because things get tossed in there at the last second. Guys that are trying to sabotage some of these kids. You have agents trying to help their kids by sabotaging others, spreading misinformation or disinformation. I'll give you an example of that in a second. But Paul Pierce knew the 9 guys ahead of him, and when he saw them, he killed them. Right? And to give you an example of what I just alluded to, I've been to one NBA draft. It was a draft that I had 4 guys that actually put on a uniform. James Harden, 2009. James Harden at 3, DeMar DeRozan at 9, Brandon Jennings at 10, Drew Holiday, I think, at 17. Now, Brandon Jennings was originally invited to the green room. Okay, I went down to the hotel to see his mom, his brother, and him. They normally have like a luncheon. NBA has a luncheon for all the green room people, like around 12 noon, and the draft is later at 5 or whatever it is, or 6 or 7, whatever the time is. So I get there to see them, greetings, whatever. Everything's fine. Right? So I go up to my hotel, and I'm about to jump on the subway to get down to Madison Square Garden. And then I get a call from somebody. I forgot who it was. Hey, did you hear what happened? Brandon just got disinvited from the green room. He's falling. He's falling out of the lottery. He's falling maybe out of the first round. And I'm thinking, what the hell's going on? So he's not there. So I get there, and he's not there. So something happened where somebody spread some information, but it was kind of funny if you remember, or you may not remember. He was actually picked 10th, ultimately, not there. So they picked him. They didn't have the initial shaking of the hand moment with I think Stern was still the commissioner then. Mm-hmm. Was it still with Silver come on?
It was Stern.
Stern. Yeah. And he was picked, but no handshake. So he hears his name. He's at the hotel 2 blocks away. He puts his suit on, jumps all the way in a taxi, gets to the Madison Square Garden. In between like the 17th and 18th pick, or 21st, 22nd pick, they gave him his moment. He got there, and they did like a pause between picks, and they gave him his moment,
Absolutely.
So to give an example of sometimes, the pecking order in the draft and how people perceive you at a given time can be fluid. But going back to the original question about evaluate, I kind of take a blender approach. I don't ignore people with upside. I think it's important. I think it's a good thing to consider that. But you also have to have some connection to production and some connection to winning basketball if you want to draft guys that are going to win for you in the NBA level. John Welch has got the assistant job at Kentucky yesterday. Longtime NBA assistant, played for Tarkanian at UNLV, coach with Seth Greenberg at Long Beach State, who's now on ESPN. Tark's last job at Fresno State, he was with them. And he told me one time, when Tarkanian had it rolling at UNLV, when he was considering somebody to be a starter on his team, his mind was, is this guy a first-round pick? That's the standard. I go, what about a bench player? And John goes, well, he considered him, is this a second-round pick? So he had an NBA pick, one way or the other. He wanted his stars to be first-round picks. He wanted his back in the second-round picks. You look at his NBA rosters. Boston in chaos. Now, in fairness to that guy, young coach, I don't know him. I felt bad for him because he looked like a deer in headlights.
Yeah,
it was almost. And he tried to take the fall for what happened, but he also, in effect, hurt himself because he admitted his inexperience. I didn't have my guys ready, he said. Well, when were you going to get it ready? It's game 3, man.
Right.
When were you going to get these guys ready? You're at the Eastern Conference Finals. It made him look bad, although he is a very good coach, although very young. And going back to the Tarkanian thing, so the standards of how you view things. You look at also Boston Celtics, point I was going to make. The year before, they came very close to winning it all. Mm-hmm. But if you look at their bench, they had no bench.
Right.
They were relying on two-ways, rookies, minimums, whatever. If you would have guys, for me, you could swing for the fences for your starters.
Yeah.
But your backups now more than ever, because it was the case before. If it worked in the 80s, it can work now. You're not reinventing the wheel. I want winners on my bench.
Yep.
Guys that have won in high school, guys that know how to win in college.
Yep.
Guys that know how to perform when the lights are the brightest. And there seems to be a devoid there. And part of that, I understand why, because they're paying these top guys so much money.
Yeah.
They don't have much money for anybody else. So they're trying to make up for what they're paying their top 3 to 5 guys with minimums, two-ways, 10 days, G League.
Yeah.
And in many cases, they're shortchanging their team.
That's why Denver's so balanced, because they have guys who were either really good high school, college, and they got them on budget-friendly contracts because of where they were in the career.
And they got a little bit of luck too. Michael Porter too, had he not hurt his back and had that surgery, would have been way higher. Right. And they wouldn't, in that draft, they would not have been able to get him. And then they had the luxury, because at that time they were still relatively loaded talent-wise, and they were able to take a gamble on Michael Porter despite the back. And Michael Porter was the MVP of my camp, so I know him very well. He's very talented. Yeah. He's a potential NBA All-Star.
Yes.
In a year to 3 years. And
even Aaron Gordon, top 5 high school player.
And that's why you saw the EuroLeague. EuroLeague is so good right now. There's a lot of guys in the EuroLeague, a lot of Americans there, like Mike James, Shane Larkin, Tyler Dorsey. I think those guys would be great bench players for winning teams in the NBA. But there seems to be like more of a disconnect or an unwillingness to go in that direction. But that league is a tough league, and I love their playoff format. 8 teams out of 18 make it. The parity 1 through 8 is tremendous. The number 1 team in the league this year, Olympiacos, they have a hybrid system there, which is kind of unique. Their first round, 1 plays 8, 2 plays 7, 3, 6, 4, 5. But they play best of 5.
Oh, nice.
Right, first round. And then the survivors go to a Final Four for a 1 game. So it's kind of half NBA playoffs, half NCAA Final Four format. Yeah. And the best of 5 are more brutal than the 4.
Yeah.
Then the team that number 1 team, they lost in the finals on a buzzer beater. They easily could have they went to 5 games with the 8 Fenerbahce, which is a very good team. Yeah. And if Slukas from Olympiacos, Kostas Slukas, doesn't hit a game-winning shot in Game 3, they're 1-1 back to Fenerbahce. Game 3 on the road, need a buzzer beater to go 2-1. If they lose that game, they lost Game 4. They would have not survived. But the battles there, it's a grown man's game over there. A lot of G League, 2-ways, rookies would not survive in Europe. You're talking, whether it's foreign guys or older American guys, they're grown-ass men that are playing in that league.
Oh, yeah. And
those are guys, I think the Sacramento Kings, I think they're looking to bring in a Bulgarian off that Greek team, Sasa Benzikov, who's a tremendous player, and he'll go if the price is right. But having guys like that who are experienced, that are tough.
Yeah. What's the parity of money there, though, right? So they make way more money overseas than they would at the end of a...
Well, probably 1 to 2. What was it? Most guys that are really good make $1 to $2 million a year.
Over there?
Yeah.
Oh, so that's the...
You see, but that's why they probably need to carve out more extensions in the NBA that doesn't count against the salary cap, because to get a good player, you give them $3 to $5 million. But again, you're going back to the original thing. If they can save $10 million at the end of their roster, that's probably their summer home in Monaco for the summer, or a brand new home in Bel Air. What they want to buy.
Let me just keep this piece. Right.
So that's part of the problem there too. But anyway, I think ultimately I look for guys, especially guards. Very rarely do you have guards in the NBA who didn't kill in college or high school.
Right.
I mean, you could probably put examples on one hand. Very rarely. So why do you keep swinging for the fences? You know what I mean? And obviously, sometimes a guy who's a good college player doesn't always pan out to be an NBA player. It's a little bit different game as far as creating your own shot. Sometimes you're in the right system.
Yeah.
But I think you have to have a blend of both. And from evaluating, you have to not only rely on your own eyes, because you can't be everywhere. You can't see everybody everywhere they go. You have to pay attention to data. So if I hear that Elijah Arenas, who you know very well, goes for 55, it may be against El Camino Real, but I can't discount that. I can't ignore that.
Right.
I have to tuck that in to the data file.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Some guys, and too often, even at the high school level, they seem like they see a guy have a 5-minute spurt, and they'll put all their stock in and ignore when the guy goes 0 for 10 in a big game.
Right.
They'll ignore it or not want to pay attention. You have to get the whole picture.
Yes.
And that's why I think ultimately, when it comes to the high school, you have to evaluate these guys in all three settings, with their AU teams, their high school teams, obviously, and in individual events.
Yes. Because
individual events shows you a couple things. Who has that alpha male personality? Who's going to jump in and drive the car, and who's going to be in the back seat? Mm-hmm. Number two, it shows you how many guys know good basketball, because you go to a park, you play with some old guys, you see them cutting and give and go, pass and cut. You see guys that know how to survive or know how to achieve without the benefit of structure, yes, without the benefit of familiarity. That tells you something, yes, as far as quick learning or knowing the IQ and things of that nature. So you have to evaluate them in all three settings. And that's why even before they brought the high school June live periods, I was a big proponent for a long time of having something like that, mm-hmm, to help give these coaches the big picture. Although again, some of them are offering kids only on that and not on other things. So you have kind of the reverse happening. You got to see them all in all three different settings to get the full picture and do your homework. Yeah. And unfortunately, what's happening now in college basketball, with the ease of the recruiting the portal, of the ease of technology, of information coming to you so easily, they don't even have to do this. They just do this. Right. Versus when I first started, you had guys that worked till midnight, 2 a.m. Yes. To give you a quick story here, the first real coach I met, one of the first, if not the first, was a guy that I thought was much older than me. He wasn't. Back then, we didn't have internet. We didn't have social media. What we would do, we'd have an event, and I would do a report. In my scouting service, I would mail it out. Or in many cases, if I wanted to get the word out, I would fax it into basketball offices. So I'd be up late at night from 10 p.m. to 2 a.m. and just one by one, fax it. Fax it to the University of Iowa. Fax it to Pepperdine. Fax it to Arizona State. That's the real grind. Fax it. That's the real grind. So about 12 midnight my time, I get a call on my phone from a 414 number. It's Milwaukee. And it's a guy from Marquette, a guy named Lawrence Frank, who would later become an NBA head coach, who's the general manager, vice president of the Clippers. Yeah. That's the first guy I met, Lawrence Frank. He called me. He got the thing. He had a couple questions about a couple kids. He called and had about a 20-minute conversation. That's how the guys went out and they inquired and did their homework. I'm not getting the sense now that there's a impetus or an impulse for guys to do above the minimum. And even if what's funny about it, even if you don't recruit that guy, you still got to know about him. Yes. Because you may be at a higher school a year from now, or now that guy's in play for you. Yeah. Or 2 years from now, that guy's on the transfer portal, and you have a previous connection or relationship with them versus going in cold. And I'm not sure whether the effort, because before we heard grind, I'm on my grind. We hear the rappers on their grind. Now they're not on their grind. But what happened? COVID keep guys off their grind.
they're on their phone.
Maybe COVID knocked them off the grind. But I used to hear grind. It was popular to be on the grind. Be over grind was popular. But now it seems like it's not. But that's why going back with the NBA scouts, even though in that particular draft you may only have a first round pick, but those guys are responsible for knowing everybody on that landscape, because the one thing we talked about, job security, they don't want to do happen or have happened to them when they're in a meeting right here, and the VP or the GM says, well, what about Elijah Arenas?
You have no answer.
You are a West Coast scout. You're the West Coast scout. Did you see him? What are you going to say? No.
Right.
You're going to say, yeah, I saw him 4 times. Here's my notes about him. And it gives you, in these draft scenarios, what your pecking order before the draft is not always what you're drafting. And Tyler Dorsey is a good example. Tyler Dorsey coming out of Oregon, fresh off a Final Four. Yep. He went for 20 points or more 8 straight times that postseason. 3 in the Pac-12, all 5 NCAA games, he had 20 and more. The game against Kansas in Kansas City, to go to the Final Four at 27. So he worked out for half the league. But what happened on draft day? He gets picked by a team that didn't work him out. How did that happen? Why did that happen? Because a day before the draft, there was a trade, the Dwight Howard trade. And somehow Atlanta ended up with the 41st pick when they only had a first pick and the 60th pick. So they didn't work him out because they didn't view him as a first rounder where they had John Collins. Yeah. And they thought he'd be gone by the 60th. So they never worked him out. But now they have 41 and they picked him. So those things tend to, they're inexact. This draft thing is there's no rhyme or reason to it, no exact science to it. So you got to be prepared. I don't see a lot of college coaches prepared. I send out information all the time. I get the feeling for a lot of them, they don't even bother to read it. And I'm not sure why, whether they got too busy or maybe we have information overload.
I think that's part of it. We can look up any website and find some information on a player or what other people think of them. I think it's important to know who the reliable people are in this industry. Like, you've been doing this for a long time with a great reputation at it. And so coaches, read Dinos' stuff.
Man, they don't have time. I don't hold it against you guys. No, but
we'll start doing videos. Start listening to his videos.
No, but it also goes back to your point where we're even us, when we wake up in the morning and all of a sudden I had 5 or 10 unread emails and now it's 95 now. And I'm having to spend 5, 10, 15 minutes a day deleting emails or going through quickly. I think where the information overload is part of the problem. But ultimately, I don't see the same, work ethic from a recruiting standpoint. I'm not sure whether this new generation of young assistants don't have that drive or passion to recruit, whether the portals make it easier for them to not have to do it, so they rely on that, which is less time consuming, less costly. But, those days of like Kevin O'Neill, Lawrence Frank, Kevin O'Neill was the head coach. You were staying in the office though too. If you were young, when he came in the morning, you better know your shit. Yeah. But you weren't going to be there longer. Rick Pitino hates to have those guys not only working, he used to have those guys on the treadmill at 5 a.m. And Marvin Menzies lost more weight with Rick Pitino than he ever did, being an assistant there. And I think you have a scenario too where I think it just, those older days were maybe with information not readily available, and made them more aggressive and assertive, getting that information. Giving another story, Jerry Tarkanian was recruiting Sam Bowie at that time, Lebanon, PA, which is right outside of Harrisburg. It's about 2 hours west of Philadelphia. And he noticed something peculiar. Every time he went to Lebanon, Pennsylvania, the Kentucky assistant, Leonard Hamilton, who later became a head coach at Florida State, Miami, NBA head coach, was always there. He thought to himself, am I wasting my time? This guy's, every time I come, he's always here. And there was like 1 or 2 hotels in town at that time. And they would stay at and see some other coaches there from time to time. So it was on his mind late at night. So it was kind of bothering him. So he goes down to at midnight or 2 a.m. to the front desk clerk. Some college kid working graveyard front desk. I used to work as a front desk night auditor at Armada Inn in Long Beach years ago. And goes down there and says, hey, man, I want you to do me a favor. Tells the young kid. He puts a $20 bill on the table. I need you to tell me something. He said, sir, what do you need me to tell you? I need you to tell me how many nights has Leonard Hamilton stayed at this hotel this year. So the guy looks at Tarkanian, takes the 20. He goes, he's rented the room the entire year. At that time, Tarkanian knew his match. He wasn't getting the kid. But it tells you the level of, for Kentucky.
Recruitment, man.
Kentucky, Sam Bowie was a priority.
Yeah.
And Leonard Hamilton, as the top recruiting assistant, was not going to be denied getting that kid. So it's a different type of mentality. I'm not sure I see a lot of that among the young.
Right. There's some out there for sure, but like you said, it's few and far between. Like, there, even in my days of doing this 10 years ago, when I sent information about a kid, no matter who it was, I would get a response. Hey, thanks, coach. We'll look out for him. Nowadays, I don't even get a response unless I'm sending somebody who's on the top 100 list, or, someone who has an NBA last name. Like, they don't even respond. Yeah. There are some who do, and thank you for those guys. But like you said, I think there's it's the I don't know how things are developing over time with how you see it. How are you doing things with Pangos and everything that you do a little bit differently with the landscape shifting this way? How are you keeping relevant for so long and still having impactful events and everything?
Well, I think the key thing is for Pangos All-American is we were very fortunate to be in that space early. Yeah. And we got kind of established, entrenched, and rooted very early, and we had a lot of success, which ended up in us being the only major shoe company, non-NBA player event that's NBA certified, based upon our track record. That's one. Number two, I think ultimately, less is more. Back in the older days, like when I worked the Nike All-American camp for George Raveling in Indianapolis, we were there the entire week. It was like 7 days of grueling days. We got in 2 days before the campers, and then we got there, and then we'd wake up in the morning, all you could eat breakfast in the hotel, went to the gym for skills, went back to the hotel for all you could eat lunch, went back to the gym for games, went back to the hotel for all you could eat dinner, went back to the gym for more games, went back to the hotel for a late night snack, all you could eat. The older guys who were there, the college counselors, Tim Duncans, who was at Wake Forest, they would play pickup games at the end for NBA scouts and college coaches. And you did it for 4 or 5 straight days. Jeez. And those guys were worn out. This was the beginning of the live period. They were already worn out, and now there's even more activity than ever before. And I think the mistakes some are still making, in the NBA PA camp being one. They have a very nice camp, and they do a lot of good things with the mentorship, the classroom stuff, the educational part for players and parents. Is they don't understand these kids have so much stuff on their plate. Less is more. Mm-hmm. And you got to have things done in less time. You got to give them more room and time to recuperate. People look at my camp schedule and they think, oh, Dino's not a morning person. He doesn't start till like 1 o'clock the next day. Now that may be partially true, especially in Vegas. It works out very well. But part of it too is we come in, we play that night, and we let these kids sleep in. We let them sleep in. So, and then the second day, we don't really have, even the 3 days that we go, we don't really have one full day where we're just grinding them in.
Right.
We want to keep it fun. We have, obviously, I'd like to have more instruction than what I have. I have about an hour on Friday, about 2 hours on Saturday. But again, they're already starting to be worn out. I have the high school periods coming up. They have all the July periods coming up. Nike EYBL gets there 3 or 4 days before the live period even starts. They're going 7 straight days. They have nothing left afterwards. And they're not also viewing it from a physical standpoint. They're also not viewing it from a cost standpoint, because a lot of their parents want to follow their kids, and you're making it more expensive for them, these parents. Not all of them are loaded or wealthy to do so by having so many days.
Yeah.
You're making it more difficult for them.
Yeah. Food,
you're making them put stuff on their credit cards or borrow money. And I had I do a thing at the end of the summer now that's kind of an offshoot of the camp called the festival.
Yeah.
And the first one we did, we had the top 1, 2, 3 picks of the draft in that event: Paolo Banchero, Chet Holmgren, Jabari Smith. And this past year, there was a kid that came to my camp, very good player, going to an SEC school. Families in middle class or higher. So I don't fly everybody into the camp. I don't have the budget. The festival, I don't have the budget to. So I invited this kid. He can get his own ticket. I'll take care of the hotel, whatever. And the lady called me, and she was privately, like, honest with me. She goes, I'm sorry. We'd love to have him there. But after all these weekends of the EYBL, we went 2 in April, 2 in May, and we were at EYBL for 10. I think they went 2 weeks. I think they were there 10 to 14 days.
For PJ?
Yeah, they went during the post-COVID.
Oh yeah.
She goes, she admitted, I got nothing left. I'm totally spent. And I bought him a ticket. Said, appreciate your honesty. You're a good person. I'm gonna buy your son a ticket. He came to the event. So I think part of it is we're not viewing these things, and the companies are not doing a good job saying, how do we do this, that we allow these kids to be seen without wearing them down at the ground? How do we do it to where the parents can have a better chance to afford to follow their kids and not have to choose between not going or going? And how do we make it even easier for the college coaches by putting these events in major cities and major airports? Every coach or whatever budget their program is in can get in and out.
Not have to fly and then drive a bus for 2
look at
hours.
Adidas, for example. Adidas, they're playing Omaha, Nebraska.
It wasn't even Omaha. It was in Iowa.
Iowa, across the river.
Yeah.
Right?
And they called it Omaha.
Then you have Bryan, Texas, which is about 1 hour 45 from Houston. It doesn't make any sense. That may have some benefits to the people that are organizing. I understand that.
Yeah.
Out there. But there's got to be more of a concern with not just you, the organizer.
Yeah.
There's got to be a concern for the kids, for the coaches.
If you're really doing it for them, and this is about them.
And it's funny about it, you're making it harder for your own circuit to be seen. You're making it more expensive for coaches to follow your circuit.
Yeah. And
you're making it more expensive for your parents. So.
Listen, Dinos, you can hire him as a consultant now. You shoe companies know. We're going to get to the next segment. That's all good information and awesome stuff. Next segment is My Rushmore, your top 4. And we're going to do your current 4 NBA coaches, your top 4 NBA coaches today.
That are alive.
Today, no,
and
not
coaching.
all the time. That are well, I hope they're all alive. They're coaching today.
Okay, I would say obviously Pop. We Pop. We got to give Pop his credit. Okay. Pop's probably one. I'm trying to think who else is out there. You got to love what the guy did doing in Miami. He's been doing it with LeBron, without LeBron, with Ray Allen, without Ray Allen.
Right.
And he comes from, played at Portland. Eric played at Portland. I can't mispronounce his name. The Filipino. He's done a hell of a job. They love him in the Philippines. And he's shown an ability to win with whoever he has. He's got to be up there. My good buddy Quinn Snyder had a good run with the Jazz, and now is, I think, going to do really good with the Atlanta Hawks. Landry Fields is the GM there. Who I have history with Landry, fond history. I remember Landry at my camps in the 3rd grade. Now he's a GM for. Makes you feel old now. And doing a good job there. Trey Young, known him since the 9th grade at my Texas camps, and invited him to Pangos after that. So history with him and his dad, good people. So those 3 right there. I think who else? I like who else is currently coaching.
You got a lot of good coaches that just got fired for no
reason. A lot of them just got fired. Monty Williams, Bud.
Somebody's doing a good job consistently over time.
I think what you're seeing too, you're seeing a trend more so to a younger ex-player as coach.
Yeah.
The guy who just got hired at Houston did a phenomenal job with the Celtics for 1 year. Ime, terrific coach. I would say those 4 right there. Bud was a good coach too with the Bucks. I like Doc Rivers too, but Doc Rivers, he's had his moments of shortcomings. I like Doc Rivers. Ty Lue's a good coach.
Now you're going more than 4.
Oh,
where's your 4?
Steve Kerr.
All right, there we go. I was like, man, I'm over
Brown.
here sweating.
And Mike Brown. I'm drawing a blanket.
Yeah, if I had the 4, I'm going Pop, Kerr, Monty Williams, who just got ixnayed, but I think Monty Williams and Spoelstra for sure. I think those are my top 4. I love the culture they create. You can see it in how their teams play, how they communicate. Well, mostly how their team communicates on the court. Their systems that look like their players trust each other, and they're building Pop for sure has built this system in San Antonio with what's his name going there, Wemby going there. Man, he's set up for
what
success.
You're seeing too also with Miami, and even more so with San Antonio, that continuity pays dividends, because now you're not going to have a great year every year, but that familiarity, the continuity, the chemistry pays dividends.
Yeah.
And this trying to knee jerk all the time doesn't.
Right.
And sometimes you got to take 1 step back before you take 2 steps forward. I think sometimes a lot of owners, fan base, are not tolerant or patient with that.
Absolutely. All right, now we're going to hop in our DeLorean. We're going to go back to a moment in basketball history. For you, since you were there and you actually ran the event, because I think it'd be cool to just discuss. We're going to talk about that moment where LeBron came and played at Pauley Pavilion. I think it was a monumental time. It let LA know who LeBron was, which I think was, just important in the overall context. You come to LA and become famous, and you're world famous. What was that moment like for you, being able to bring him in? And at the time, Sebastian Telfair, who was right behind him as far as ranking in high school, and everything Sebastian was able to do in high school was great. To me, that night, he outperformed LeBron. The game immediate after, and like you said, I think me and my dad were at that game, and we were about to leave after LeBron played, and I watched 5 minutes of Telfair, and I'm like, oh, we're staying. Like, it was one of those moments like, oh, we're not leaving.
But you know what happened in the press room? For the previous game, LeBron and the coaches went to the press room while Telfair was playing. And while we were in there, as reporters are asking questions, you could hear the crowd ooh and ah. And there was pauses in our little press conference because we were wondering what was going on up there. It was Telfair, obviously. Yes. So that emanated down to the press conference.
Were they playing King? Who were they playing? Who did Telfair?
Vallejo with the Marcus Nelson.
There with Marcus Nelson, yeah.
With the NBA.
That's right. He had 30 that game too.
Yeah.
Yeah. That man, what a night. Yeah, so what else was that like? What do you remember most about that night?
Well, you got to remember how that game came about. The game came about because I understood the history behind those two teams, indirect history. In the 8th grade, the high school coach was the AU youth coach for Northeast Shooting Stars, I believe is the correct name of the team. And the guys that LeBron would go to high school with were 4 or 5 guys on that team: Romeo, Drew Joyce, the younger Drew Joyce III, his youngest college assistant, and the big football guy that played at Ohio State. Yeah. And they were playing Pat Barrett's SCA team, SoCal All-Stars, in the AAU final And in modern day had two, maybe three, maybe four guys that were on that team. Two of whom played on my Belmont short team. Harrison Shane went to Princeton. Wesley Washington, who went to Minnesota, then Oregon State. Trayvon, what's Trayvon's last name? And maybe one other. But there was what happened that game is LeBron lost that game. I think I forgot exactly what happened. I think his shot got blocked at the buzzer. There's a guy that went to L.A. Fremont that played wide receiver for Stanford, Mark Bradford.
Oh, yeah.
I'm not sure if he ever made the NFL or not. Mark was probably one of the best athletes we've had out of L.A. He was on that SCA team. Apparently, he blocked LeBron to save the game. And that left a bitter taste in that team's mouth. So when I was going to approach the coach for St. Vincent St. Mary's, I knew that history. So basically what I was doing was I offered that guy a chance for a quasi de facto rematch.
Yeah.
And it was not a hard sell. He jumped at it. They wanted to face those guys again. And now it came to the high school. It was St. Vincent St. Mary's. The youth coach now went from the assistant to the head coach because the head coach went to college. Now he's the head coach. Modern day has 3 or 4 of those guys. They want to play. So that's how that thing came about. And now they had the details with the, appearance fees and all this and all that. So I had him at the Sheraton LAX, Sheraton Gateway LAX. So I got him about 25 tickets. They wanted, actually right before, the summer before, this is a funny story. Summer before, we were all in Vegas for the Vegas tournaments. And the guy, and Drew said, I want to meet you, go over all the details. Fine, guy. You like Chinese? He goes, yeah. I'll meet you at P.F. Chang's on Paradise, right there, right by the old Hard Rock. I think it's no longer there. So we meet there. His wife's there. So he goes, here's what we went down the checklist: 25 flights, check. 15 rooms, check. Okay. School wants a $15,000 appearance fee, check. Meals, check. Transportation while we're there, check. And then he said, I need a $5,000 donation to my nonprofit. Look at him. I've already given him half my underwear. Check. And then he goes, I need one more thing. So I lean back and I'm thinking to myself, what more can you need right here? Look at the wife's there. I went off with the guy. What more do you need, my brother? And I'm thinking, what more does this guy need? And he goes, yeah, I talked to Steve Smith from Oak Hill. And he told me, don't you dare go down there without one of your own. One of your own? What are you talking about? He goes, yeah, I need to bring a ref, he said. I know how modern day operates.
Right? That's smart.
All right. So and I'm looking at it, and at that point, I'm faced with, we're already in knee deep in the ocean here. Is this potentially a deal breaker? I'm thinking, what am I going on? What's going to happen here if I say no? I was processing so many things. I remember talking to the modern day coach because he wanted 2 referees in the game, not 3. 2 of his.
Of course, coach.
So I'm thinking. So I rationalized. And I said, something. Just to be on the fair side, I'm going to give Big Knight his 2. I'll give him his 1. We're not going to let this thing blow up over one referee.
Right.
I said, go ahead. And anything else you want, man. You want my underwear now.
Right.
Anything else you want. So fast forward to the game. Had I known it was going to sell out, I would have probably raised the price. I ain't going to lie to you. Yeah. But they went in when the lower bowl went out fast. I'm thinking, am I charging too less for this game? And it sold out. And when they came off the airplane, this was after 9/11. LeBron was the first guy down the escalator. He was happy to be in LA. All right, we get there. Now I'm putting this game together, raising money, raising sponsors. I had one sponsor who had a limo company, so I was using his limo to help transport whenever possible. And I didn't pay for the limo. I got it for free. So but the limo pulls up. You see the limo there. I get excited. As we go from the limo, from the curb to the limo, I start hearing these little clicks, photography clicks. And there's people like popping out from poles, and that's the story in Sports Illustrated. There's 2 stories on LeBron James in high school. My Grant Wool just died at the World Cup. The one was he's on the cover as a junior. The second one was from the Pangos Dream Classic event, where it's inside the magazine. I think the cover was Ohio State won the Sugar Bowl or something. Okay. I forget the quarter. Had the funny name. Had quarterback was on the cover. So they're shooting photographs, and take him to the hotel, and then they wanted to go eat. So, and the coach warned me. He said, I got to warn you in advance. He goes, Bron's kind of a finicky eater, very particular eater, doesn't eat everything. I go, what about P.F. Chang's? You like P.F. Chang's? He goes, yeah, but I'm not sure he's going to like it. Right? He's going to like it. The P.F. Chang's, I think that's closed now too. The one in off Rosecrans by Manhattan Beach, by the airport. So I take him there, and he actually liked it's the first time he ate at P.F. Chang's. The whole team was there. But now they wanted to go to the pool, wanted to go to see the ocean. So I had switched over from the limo to a 15-passenger van. So you want to go to the ocean? Okay, fine, I'll take you down to Manhattan Beach Pier. So we could jump in the van. He jumps in the shotgun seat. I'm driving. Phone's ringing off the hook for tickets. Passes, media, whatever. I couldn't even function back then. So we're driving, and phone rings. Answer the phone. It's some Hollywood publicist for a new and young rapper that wants tickets to the game. I said, ma'am, what's your rapper's name? And she said, 50 Cent. Right? At that time, I think it just when he first came out.
Yeah,
all right? I was not aware of 50 Cent at that time.
No, that's like when he dropped his first album was 2003, his first real.
Okay. Yeah. So I go, ma'am, I said, I apologize, but right now I'm under so much stress. I told her. And unfortunately, I had told her, I don't know 50 cents from 25 cents.
Oh, my God.
And so now LeBron overhears my conversation with this lady and kind of nudged me. I said, who's that? I go, man, what's your rapper's name again? And she said, 50 Cent. I looked at LeBron. I said, LeBron, some guy, 50 Cent. And he goes, oh, that's my dude. I said, what? I said, man, he'll have 2 tickets at will call. I'll see you there. Click.
That's my dude. Oh, my gosh. Some rapper named 50 Cent.
Yeah, I was getting calls for all kinds of celebrities. And obviously, Urkel, Jaleel was a big fan.
Oh, man.
And we had the media luncheon at Lowry's in Beverly Hills. Mm-hmm. And they come up, they carve you the prime rib. He had somebody from Adidas who was sponsoring the team in high school go fetch him Burger King. You got a picture of him with a Burger King bag, even though he's a McDonald's endorser. I still have that photograph.
I hold it against
for ransom. Send it to Clutch. Hey, Clutch, I have this photograph. How much do you want to get rid of this? How much do you value your McDonald's deal?
Absolutely. Dinos, it was awesome. Thank you for coming on the show and giving us these awesome stories and just your take on everything. You're always welcome back here.
I appreciate it.
So, guys, we appreciate him being on the show.
Yeah, lovely job you do with Core Prep.
Thank you.
Really elevating the quality of basketball here in Southern California. It's too bad we don't have you in other areas.
We're working on that. We're looking for the right people to partner with, the right schools, and so I appreciate your support always, and always sending kids to your events because you do it the right way. So thank you for that.
Yeah.
Awesome. So we'll see you guys next time. Make sure you reach out to Dinos. We'll have his handles down in the description. If you guys have any questions, check out the Pangos camp. It'll be streaming on Baller TV as well. If you can't make it out to Vegas, that's June 5th through 7th?
4th through 6th.
4th through the 6th. June 4th through the 6th. You can check it out. Going to have all the top all American players in the country there. So
expected all 30 NBA teams this year. This year, Lakers got their act together, hired a few scouts. So other than the owner's son, so they think they're in good shape now.
Awesome. We'll have the Lakers there. So thank you guys. We'll see you next time. Peace.